Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search specializes in helping small law firms in Texas hire lawyers and build great teams. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel here back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. Happy Labor Day to you, and I hope you and your family are both healthy and safe. Now, before we get into this episode, I want to let you know that after a summer hiatus, Movie Verdicts is back. I'm joined by Robert Callahan and my wife, Adrienne Hare, as we dive into the phenomenon known as Hamilton. We're going to talk about duels, talk about the 12th Amendment, talk about the mostly minority cast, talk about the power of words and writing. Super excited about this show, and so I hope you'll check it out. Part 1 is in your feed right now. We released it on Thursday. Part 2 will be coming very soon. Another quick note is a reminder of the opportunities that we are currently searching for. We're looking for a 2 to 5 year business litigation attorney in Dallas, a 2 to 5 year family law associate in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and then third, a 3 to 12 year construction litigation attorney. Actually looking for 2 positions there, kind of a mid-level associate and then more of a senior associate or partner level. There are also a number of big law opportunities I've become familiar with as well and can potentially help you if that's of interest. So you can email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com, or go to varsitysearch.com/lawyers to get more information and apply for those opportunities. All right, today we are privileged to be joined by Holly Davis and Chris Kirker, both of them on the show with us today. They are the founding partners of Kirker Davis, a family law boutique firm in Austin. And as I think you'll hear from our conversation, Holly and Chris do things a bit differently, and it has served them well, combining their reputation for excellent trial advocacy with a commitment to providing concierge-level services to their clients. For the past 5 years, Holly and Chris have exclusively handled family law cases involving multi-million-dollar estates, divorces involving multiple businesses, and high-profile clientele. Holly and Chris have received numerous awards and accolades for their work and achievements, including being named Super Lawyers Rising Stars. Now, with that, let's hop into our conversation with Holly Davis and Chris Kirker on today's Labor Day Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Holly Davis and Chris Kirker join us right now. Holly, Chris, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
We're excited to have you. I want to start off and ask you a little bit about what's happening with your firm as it relates to COVID-19 and the response to that and kind of the conditions that you're finding yourselves in. Now, Chris, we were talking a little bit about that just before we hopped on here. But what's the latest for you all? And for context to those listening, and we're recording this July 30th. People are listening to it a little bit later. And this changes really rapidly and fluidly. So, but what's happening right now?
Well, actually, the shelter in place that began in March really created some interesting family law issues and problems for almost every single family.
Yeah.
Since we're a family law firm, we found that really beginning in March, there's been an incredible influx of people calling and needing help. They need help to interpret parts of their existing orders. You know, what are the rules about their divorce in this COVID age of sheltering in place and protocols? So in the beginning, we saw quite a few people who were trying to interpret all of these conflicting orders and suggestions and protocols, and that was really tricky. Our firm has had an incredible uptick since March, really, of increased amount of potential clients calling us and needing help. And so people are just wanting to know their options. If they're in an abusive situation, then this COVID situation really exacerbates that problem.
Sure.
If they're in a dysfunctional relationship that was dysfunctional before COVID hit, and now everybody's living in the same space and that dysfunctionality is being highlighted, they're trying to get some information about their options to go through a divorce or navigate some of the rules about their kids, especially with school issues in the fall coming up as well. So it's been a really hard time on people and families. And we're seeing that in the uptick of potential clients that are calling our firm and needing us to help guide them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know that was a big fear of the lockdown orders was, trapping people in situations that were not healthy, and what they could do in the midst of that. How about within just the legal community and within the courts? Chris, we were just barely kind of starting to touch on that before we hopped on here, but what's the status right now with the courthouse and when things are set to maybe resume some type of a trial schedule or anything like that?
Sure, I can give an update about that. In Travis County, Austin area specifically, they're actually going to test sample Zoom jury trials. It's basically a pilot program where they're non-binding summary jury trials or pilot program jury trials. And so they're going to see how that goes just to test things out. I doubt that we'll ever get to a place where there's binding jury trials anytime soon. But, depending on the passage of time, I imagine that will be discussed. Bexar County, as I understand it, is doing something of a hybrid. It sounds like they are going to start doing the jury summons and have some of voir dire done via Zoom. And I know less about Bexar County specifically and what they're looking to do long term, but it seems like the Zoom hearings are here to stay. I think there's been a lot of changes in the efficiencies of courts where, in our practice, we have what's called a prove up at the end of a divorce, where you take your client down to the courthouse and you have them give some basic testimony to get the court to sign off. And that's gone right now. And I've actually heard from various judges that they like that because it's way more efficient. It saves everybody time. And a lot of documents are getting signed off by judges without the need for physical appearance. So there's a lot of efficiency that's being revealed through the downside of COVID.
And I'm also incredibly impressed with our family court systems in Austin and in Williamson County, because our firm, we have now, I think, 11 attorneys, and they have pivoted very easily, and so have the courts, into these Zoom hearings. So our hearing schedule has not reduced. Our hearing schedule has increased in this time of COVID because, unfortunately, there's more emergencies going on, and the judges are handling this really well, I think. What's happened is that the inefficiencies of the central docket in Travis County, where you wait around at docket call,
right?
And the clock's ticking because you have to be ready at any moment to drop what you're doing and go run down to the fourth floor and get heard by the judge there. And you got your client and your paralegal and your box of evidence with you, or boxes, which is usually our case. That's all gone. So you now get a date and a time and a place where you have your hearing. It's on Zoom. And the exhibit list has to be submitted to the court in advance. Everybody gets to see a description of the exhibit list from the other side. So there's a level of transparency that's occurring between attorneys now because we've had to go virtual. There's a level of efficiency that's occurring in the court system, which I think ultimately clients can appreciate because it costs less to conduct their Zoom hearing.
Yeah,
I'm really proud of how the judges have pivoted using this new technology and are available, I think, more than they have been before. Even though your setting might be further out, it's a lot easier to be reached, I think, once you get to that setting date, which might be, maybe 2-3 weeks further out than you wanted, but it's a better process overall, I think.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad that you're mentioning that. It's something we've heard from a few different folks over the last month or two about the efficiencies that are being gained from not having to take a 10-minute hearing, what amounts to a substantively 10-minute hearing, and make it into 3 hours with travel and driving through traffic and parking and then the waiting. And that ultimately the lawyers are making better use of their time, and it's obviously saving the clients money and making things more efficient. So hopefully things like that can find a way to stick around after all this is behind us, and we find ways to utilize these tools that we have. Have you guys figured out anything now now that you've had a couple months of doing this that are good ways or best practices of conducting hearings through the Zoom technology or other technologies, or just tips that you have for lawyers if they haven't done anything like this yet? What have you learned over the last couple months?
Yes, I'll start, and then I know Chris has some pointers as well. So we're Baylor lawyers, and we're used to the courtroom. I'm used to standing up and saying, "May it please the court." I'm used to approaching the witness and asking to approach the witness before, offering any sort of exhibit. And all of those rules that we learned and our, preparation for trial, that's the local rules, the stuff that you can't really learn in the books and you don't find online. You can still use that through Zoom technology. And so what I find, especially with the associates at our law firm, the ones that are succeeding really, really well in this program are the ones that are very, very organized, the ones that prepare in advance for the hearing. Now, I'm a litigator that loves to, the night before and the morning of, for some reason, start that one last exhibit that I probably don't need, but I'm adding. I really like 2 days before to perfect my cross, even though I've been working on it for weeks. Something about that crunch time. And I would say that my advice to young attorneys or to attorneys that are transitioning now to a post-COVID world really need to be a little bit more organized in their trial presentation. And it's not a hard thing to do. It's just a minor little shift. You might need a little bit of help from your paralegal, but the more you have your exhibit list prepared in advance, and the more you know exactly what page number you're going to be looking to on your exhibits, the easier you can kind of shift between your argument and sharing the screen. And I also suggest that people start doing Zoom all the time. Do Zoom for your office meetings. Do Zoom for your client consults. Do Zoom for a meeting with your paralegal. You might not need it and you might prefer the phone, but everybody that's succeeding at our firm is doing so because that's the format we've been using for everything. So the more comfortable you are in front of the camera and on Zoom, and it's a process, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We all spoke on Zoom with that audio off, right? In the beginning, we were, all kind of laughing about how we're on the Brady Bunch screens. This is our new reality. So the more we're comfortable with it, the better off you'll be. And the judges are loving our trial presentation because it's so well organized and we aren't fumbling around. And I do think that affects the outcome and the advocacy level as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One of the simplest tips I have is pretty straightforward. It's don't show up to your Zoom hearing right as it's starting. I've seen that mistake made. How do the first 5 or 10 minutes get utilized? It's with people fixing their microphones and adjusting their volume or changing the lighting in their room, which is nightmarish as far as I'm concerned. So I think showing up to your hearing 15 minutes early to test out the audio with court administration is a no-brainer piece of advice that I give to anybody.
Yeah.
I second what Holly said is, getting really familiar with the technology that you're going to use. Because in Travis County, we've got Zoom, and largely in Williamson County, they use Microsoft Teams as of now.
Yeah. Yep.
Got to be comfortable with both if you're practicing in multiple areas. The other thing I've seen, which I'm happy, and it's a trend, is that lawyers are picking better battles when it comes to things like admissibility of evidence, authentication of information. And there's a reason for that, because the judges have a pretty great amount of grace to the advocates who are doing the best they can. They're trying to be as organized as possible, but this is very different a forum than an in-person hearing where you can just pull a piece of paper out of your briefcase. And so I think another tip I would have is be really sure that you're going to pick that battle as to authenticity or admissibility. And you better have a very buttoned up legal argument based on the rules of evidence if you're going to challenge it, and have a good reason for it. So this is more like lawyering tips, but judges are taking a more critical eye of those that are obstructing sort of the process, if you will, which is seamlessly introducing evidence virtually.
Right. Right.
And I have one more thing that's kind of, it sounds a little funny to say, but I do believe in this tip because I've seen this go poorly for an attorney at a Zoom hearing. You need to dress like you're still in a hearing. And I know we've all seen online, and maybe we've posted ourselves pictures of us attending a hearing. It's like this thing now where we take a picture of ourselves in a suit jacket and a nice top, and we're wearing like swimsuit bottoms, or we're wearing like shorts and we're barefoot. And that's funny. And that was really funny in the beginning because it was kind of absurd what was happening. But
right.
But now we're in this new normal, and this is what we're going to have to live with for a while, and especially in Travis County and Williamson County, at least through the duration of 2020. This is what it's going to look like. So today, for example, Daniel, you've been kind and told us that we're not going to be broadcasting the video of this. I am wearing a dress because I, this morning, had an extremely important phone call with one of my biggest clients and their out-of-state counsel that are working up a deal that is in conjunction with the deal that we're working on. And when I dress the part of a lawyer, I feel the part, and I'm ready at any moment if I need to get called into an emergency hearing or if I have to have a Zoom conference with the client. And I know that that might be asking a lot of people to do in their home. I'm doing this in my office right now because we're essential workers and we're at the office, although our team is not.
Right.
I do think it's important to still have the elements of dressing the part, acting the part, feeling the part, because if you're wearing your jammies and you're at a hearing and you're asked to stand up or you have to move and the court sees that you're wearing jammies, this actually happened to an opposing attorney in one of our associates' hearings. You get completely ridiculed and it looks like you don't care. And if you're charging hundreds of dollars an hour, your client's ticked that you couldn't even put some pants on.
Yeah. No, that's a great piece of advice. And I would extend that to anyone who is interviewing. We'll talk about interviewing a little bit, but I've noticed throughout the summer and late spring conducting interviews on Zoom with candidates who don't show up as if they're showing up at an interview, and they're just maybe not in their pajamas, but they're definitely in more casual wear than you would if this was a face-to-face in-person interview. That might have been fine if it was a phone interview 2 years ago, but it's not on the phone anymore. It's
I
with
can
pictures.
literally see your stained T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. So good to continue to dress as if you were right in front of the person and physically present with them, and not take it down a notch from there. Well, that's great stuff. And obviously, this, as we said, this is a situation that's with us for a while, and who knows the ups and downs that we'll see over the next few months. But thanks for sharing that. It's helpful. I do want to bring us back to let you talk a little bit about your firm. We've referenced it a couple of times. You're a family law firm in Austin, a young and growing firm, and it's an exciting time for you guys. Why don't you just share a little bit about you guys and your firm, your practice, and the types of clients you represent, and a little bit more about your practice.
Sure. This is our second iteration of a very successful multi-million-dollar family law firm. And we have a very strong vision of who our ideal client is. We have a very strong vision of who is the family and the team that we want to be working with for those clients. And we are ultimately a law firm that wanted to break the mold and disrupt the old school way of practicing law and having firm culture and having firm expectations. So we are living, breathing proof that you can do things differently in a more modern way, create policies that benefit the associate attorney, create income streams that benefit the firm and the associate attorney and the client, and create policies that promote a work-life balance. We currently have 11 associate attorneys. We have 3 partners, myself, Chris Kirker, and Cody Silva, another Baylor grad. Yeah. And we are hiring because we literally have more clients calling in than we can really handle. And that's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of high level view. And Chris, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, the way I kind of talk about the firm is a high stakes litigation firm that can also provide tremendous value to folks that do not want to be in litigation. They're not conflict driven, and perhaps they don't have millions of dollars. And we do provide service that meets, I think, the need of the community, which is a whole spectrum of range of financials. But I second what Holly said. I mean, we've created a culture where we absolutely consider each of our associates and paralegals in every decision that we make. And when we hire someone, it's our goal that they want to plant their flag here with us at Kirker Davis and make a career, not a job out of it. Yeah. And Holly used a great word that I love. It's vision. I mean, our vision for our clients is really critical to their outcomes. Our vision for our associates is really critical, to build up the culture that we now have, which is, I'm so proud of the culture that we build because it's going to create some real staying power, and it will also attract some like-minded individuals that want to be like the very best at their craft, which is really what we're going for.
Something I'm really proud of also is that it's a female-owned business, right? Chris and I are the co-founders and the owners, and we're a majority female law firm. We have a broad range of diversity from background, age, sexual preferences, and orientation. I mean, we are a really great mix of different people. And I don't see that when I look online at Big Law. And I don't see that when I'm looking at other law firms. And it's just happened naturally because we're merit-based. You can be young and brilliant and a rainmaker. You can be a private judge and retired judge and still be an associate and have a great upward trajectory. We really look to your work product and not who your mommy and daddy were or where you came from or anything like that. And I like that a lot because I benefited from that model and I think Chris did as well. So we're recreating that here too.
Yeah. And I want to commend you guys because I think what you've said here and shared here is unique in the legal space, and so many firms kind of continue the status quo and play it safe, and kind of what we've done before is what we're going to do. And sometimes that can be okay, but a lot of times, especially as we grow, we have to adjust to the times. We need to find better ways to do things, and we should always be trying to do that. And but it takes a level of courage and boldness and faith to jump out and do that. And you guys have done it from the beginning, and it's paying off. And so and those of your associates that get a chance to work with you and the clients that get a chance to work with you, I think feel that and know that. And so you're creating a special place. And so I think that's really commendable. And I'm glad that you've done that and that it's having success and you have a lot to show for it. So congrats on all of that. One thing I want to ask you about is maybe kind of rewinding your mind a little bit and thinking about as a practicing lawyer, what were a couple of things that you learned in the early stages of your law practice that have stuck with you and that you would want to pass along to other young lawyers that have been keys to your success?
Sure. Like every response, I'm starting. I'm just so excited to answer.
I'm just tossing them out there.
I know. Poor Chris. I'm just like really, really the first to answer this. So I'll start. Chris will add to it. The first thing is that I really learned again in law school that I could do something very, very hard and that I would survive it. And I might even thrive in it. So I learned in the third year at practice court at Baylor that I was able to get through something that was objectively difficult and that at the time in the beginning of that process I thought was impossible. So going through something that I previously thought was impossible, finding out it was possible and that I was also good at it, or there were things that I had that were strengths, really stuck with me for almost every single moment of the first few years of my practice. Because if I had a case I couldn't figure out, or I had a fear about a hearing, I had a difficult client, or if I encountered a business problem, I always went back to, you did something before that you thought was impossible and you were great at it. This is no different. I have yet, and I'll knock on wood, I have yet to encounter a judge in the 13 or 14 years of practice I've been doing high stakes litigation and family law that was more difficult than the professors I had that were teaching me, and I thank them for that.
Yeah.
If I could get through that, I do feel like I could get through anything. And the other thing that I encourage people to do is to remember as they are moving through the first few years of their practice that the philosophies they adopt in business now can be changed, but they really should be modeling people that are doing it well and their philosophies, because it is I've found in business that you will be successful when you collaborate and you're part of a team and you value the individual attorney's paralegals and staff and your own clients in a way that's different than most businesses. But that's a minority position, I think, unfortunately, in the marketplace, especially in law firms. And I've been affiliated with law firms that might not have had that as their North Star.
Right.
When you start out your practice and you think that I'll never make partner, it's only benefiting the few, or people are bad, so I need to create policies that catch people doing things wrong, or no one can do anything the way I can do it, therefore I can never scale. These are the limiting thoughts that if you start out with, you're going to probably end up with. It'll be harder to change. So if as a young lawyer, you might not know what the heck you're doing or where you're going, find somebody that's got it figured out, at least to you, and then start asking them what their philosophies are and their beliefs are, because I think you'll find that the successful ones really value their team members and the individual associate attorneys and create policies and rules that benefit that attorney. And if you become an attorney that lives that way and creates that type of environment, more attorneys and people are going to want to be drawn to that.
My piece of advice to young lawyers is more on the business side of being a lawyer, and that is be mindful of how clients, both now and in the future, are going to search for you. And a majority of folks conduct an internet search before they decide on the attorney they're going to select. And I think the associate mentality is, well, my law firm is going to take care of delivering me client work. And I think folks need to start from a partnership and ownership mentality, which is how are we going to get clients in the door so that we can provide the great service that we provide. And if you don't have your name out there, if you aren't running a Google search of your own name, then you're not duplicating the client experience. And that's like literally step one before they meet you. So I encourage young lawyers to start thinking about how they market. And then as far as substantively, I'm a big proponent of, at least early in your career, and I know this is going to be maybe taboo in my industry, I'm not a big fan of dabbling. I want somebody who's got a couple years of experience handling one type of practice area at least. In fact, family law is such a broad practice area. I mean, we're kind of very niche at this point within the family law umbrella. But for a young lawyer starting out, if they have an opportunity to hyper focus on a certain practice area that they believe in, I mean, they need to go into this thing with some thinking behind it. Think carefully, what practice area do I think has staying power? What practice area do I think highlights my skills and my talents, whether it's transactional or oral advocacy? And then give everything you've got to that practice area so that when the client is looking for you on Google, they can see real substance behind your name rather than I handle every case no matter what it is. Because if I'm a consumer, if you put yourself in the position of a potential client, this person does everything. That's great, but I'm looking for the person that does exactly what I need at the highest level. That's me as a consumer. So those are my two pieces of advice.
I have one more thing to add to.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with what Chris is saying. You'd be so surprised what you can find about people on the internet. And the one thing I wanted to add is before I started my first litigation job, I hand delivered a referral to that firm 2 weeks before my start date. And I did that because I could. And I did that because I had a friend who needed it. And I wanted to show them how valuable I was, because at the time I got a crazy offer. It was like a base salary of something like $20,000. This job was like not going to be on the table for longer than 30, 60 days. So don't get your hopes up, but leave this really great, state job. And after my first year out, I was in a state job, but leave this for litigation. And I wanted to bet on myself. I wanted to show them that I was someone that could bring value to that firm and bring a benefit. And I was resourceful. And so I hand delivered a referral for a PI claim to this firm before I even showed up. And I want young lawyers to know that you can do everything that partner is doing. You can bring in work. You can make connections. You can analyze a case. You can argue a case. You've got to have a couple of foundational skills like effort and work ethic and trying. But you can do every single thing that lawyer that's making, millions of dollars a year can do. You got to start now. But when you tell yourself, oh, I can't network, then guess what? You won't be able to. Oh, I can't rainmake. Well, then you won't. But if you demystify it and you make it just like going to the store or working out or reading up on the law, then it will become a part of your practice and you will bring value to every single firm you go to.
Yeah, that's really good. And just to kind of expand a little on what Chris was saying with regards to the hyper niche focusing early on, that I think you're right. That is something that people are afraid to do. That's a little bit taboo. But as I'm talking to lawyers and counseling with them, one of the things I always tell them is that, and this is even if they're just doing a job search and they don't even have any experience yet or have very little, to just, pick something they think they want to do. What's the number one thing on the list? It may not ultimately be what they do, but pick that number one thing on the list and just tell people that's the kind of lawyer that you want to be or the lawyer that you are. Because like you were saying, Chris, like if you're out there searching for someone, you want to find the person that can do what you need. Nothing else. It matters. And so it's the same way on the hiring side. If you're wanting to be a family law attorney or a family litigator, then that's what you need to be focusing on and telling people, because if I'm out there and I hear of a job at Kirker Davis and I think what candidates do I know of that want to do family law litigation? Well, if someone's told me they've wanted to do 8 different things versus someone that's told me they want to do family law litigation, I'm calling the other person first to say, hey, I know of this great opportunity. And it's just the way it works. And I think it works that way when you're practicing in terms of client development as well. I think it all makes sense. And so people shouldn't be afraid, I don't think, to declare something, to be something. And you know what? After a year and a half, if it's not working out, you want to try something different, go try something different.
Exactly.
It's fine.
I agree.
I read when I see people who are unsure and they present that way in interviews as unsure. That I make judgments and I extrapolate that out about their inability to know whether or not this is a good fit. Would I want to invest our dollars and more importantly, our time on a new candidate who's just not even sure? I've had to recently tell, new hires, if there's not a single thing that you can't find any passion about in any sort of work that we do here at this law firm in 30 days, you've got to let me know, because this isn't going to work. And I don't want to sound harsh, and I understand how difficult it is to make a decision sometimes, but you've got to make a decision. Like if you have to go for a weekend on a retreat and go to the mountains and figure out what you want to do and put on your resume, go ahead and do that, because you're going to have to choose. And if you don't choose, then that tells me who you are as a lawyer. And, that's not going to maybe put you at the front of the line in terms of hiring. And then also, if you don't know what you want, do you think that's going to come out to a client? Don't you think that's going to seep out to a court? So got to be all in.
Absolutely. Well, and let's as we're kind of winding down our time, actually, it's going fast. Let's end on talking about hiring and interviewing. First on resumes, cover letters, documents. What are some key things that you're looking for, both positively and negatively, to kind of figure out who you want to move forward with in a job search process? Sure.
I think, of course, resume, cover letter is, to me, a no-brainer, because if you're looking at it from the prospective employer's angle, assume they've got 1,000 sets of candidates on their desk. They can almost eliminate the folks that are serious about the position by finding out they didn't even send us a cover letter. And so when people are wishy-washy about cover letter or not, to me, it just needs to be a prerequisite to a legitimate submission as a candidate. The other thing, it seems obvious, but I think every other resume I look at has some error on it. And I shake my head, but it's true. About 50% of all resumes we get, and cover letters for that matter, have just the wrong information.
And what do we do with those?
And then even if they're qualified, we tend to just set those aside.
We don't even look at them. If you can't spell check.
So, and for me, this might go back to the don't dabble idea, but when I don't have the sense from the cover letter that they're all in on being a family law attorney, they have to be pushed down in the pile. I'm not saying they won't be considered, but the first question out of the gate at the interview is going to be, how serious are you about being a family law attorney? Because your resume doesn't say anything about it, and your cover letter just said you heard good things about the firm.
Yeah.
I see that you were the top of your class and you have some experience doing this and that, but it's not family law. So, of course, I'd love to hire everybody that has lots of family law experience. But if I can kind of give one tip as to what I'm really looking for in a candidate, it's their hunger level. If a candidate is very hungry to be the best at what they do, I'd like to talk to them. And everything else is quite secondary, in my opinion.
I would even say that a hunger level in a different area of practice that's wanting to make a transition into family law is equally attractive.
Totally agree.
And I also think I scan these cover letters and I see all these fancy words and nice sentence structures, but the ones I really land on are the ones that get to the heart of the matter. They might even say, I understand I might not have as much family law experience from blah, 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 but here's why you need to consider me. When someone reads my mind and understands some of the limitations of the resume and then throws in an advocacy piece in their cover letter to say, nevertheless, here's why you don't go with that first thought. Here's why you should consider me despite what you see here.
Right. I
love that because that is the height of persuasive speaking. And I really appreciate the ability of the drafter of that letter to anticipate my own question when I read it.
I like that. The other angle here, and this came up in an interview we conducted yesterday, and I think it's a concept that's here to stay. I believe candidates focus too much on where they've been and not enough about where they want to go and where they're going. And to me, if I needed to call you and talk to you about where you went to law school, I mean, I know where you went to law school. I see you got good grades. I mean, to me, that's wasteful of your time. It's wasteful of my time. Right. The entirety of the interview needs to be about fit of personality and can we get along? Do I want to hang out with you, even if it's not to talk about a case? And secondly, it's about where are you headed in your career and why would I want to hitch the wagon of a law firm to you? Like, persuade me about that. And so less time about the past and where I've been. Of course, and this is unfortunate, but most employers have their checklist of questions that largely surround the universe of the resume. And I think that's probably an antiquated way of interviewing somebody, in my humble opinion. Yeah. All of it should be about where do you see yourself? How are you going to get there? What specific plans of action do you have? Are you autodidactic? Are you self-taught? Do you leave the day from the office and go cram as if there's a test the next day that's not coming just to get better at your craft? Because that speaks to what? It speaks to hunger. So if you can speak to the hunger level and about where you're going, well, any law firm leader is going to want to take on folks that are going to bring energy, not sap energy.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. Absolutely. Well, we want to be respectful of your time, as we were just talking about being respectful of interviews times in the time of the interview. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you were really hoping to say or something you think a young lawyer might need to really hear today?
You can do it. Just believe in yourself because authenticity is the most persuasive rhetorical device that we've got. So really do some soul searching about what you want and then have that shine through your written word and, and through all your interviews. And don't limit yourself. You can absolutely do it. You just got to want to.
I guess my advice would be to those folks that feel stuck in whatever they're doing or whatever practice area they've chosen. They're not stuck. I mean, if they can change their frame of reference and look at what they really want to do with their law degree, they could, especially in this world of COVID, take a fresh look at it. Consider where your strengths are because you're going to know more about yourself than you did last year, and consider whether a pivot's appropriate for you. And that doesn't mean necessarily leaving a firm. It might be that you want to stay in a firm and grow a practice area that they don't handle currently. And to me, that's innovation, and that's something young lawyers need to do more with.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Take advantage of this opportunity to kind of rethink things. I think it is a good piece of advice. Well, we have our rapid fire questions to close out our time. So if you're ready, we'll jump into that.
Ready.
All right. Who's going to go first on this?
I'm taking it.
That's what I thought. All right. So we'll go Chris and then all right.
It's the fourth quarter, right?
That's right.
Wait for the fourth quarter.
Yeah, he's grabbing the ball now.
The ball in the fourth quarter.
There you go.
All right. We'll see who goes first. Name the one trait or characteristic that you most want to see in an associate.
Well, I already gave it away. I think it's both hunger and drive and being self-taught. That's my answer.
Same, hunger.
Cool. What habit has been key to your success?
A desire to be the best.
Believing in myself.
Cool. Your favorite app or productivity tool?
Zoom, because you can record your conversations for training purposes.
There you go.
I think for law firm leaders, I really like Clio. That's our that's the software we use to run the firm. I'm a big proponent of Clio.
Cool. Your favorite social distancing activity?
Walking in the neighborhood while taking calls. No extra time.
Swimming.
Nice. I like it. I wish everybody could see Holly during this session. This is really great. She's really focused and locked in on these. Your favorite legal movie? This is the last one. Favorite legal movie?
None. They all are so unrealistic. I can't stand it. So indulgent.
But if you had to pick, because the judge isn't going to let you off the hook.
The Pelican Brief, because the lady figured it out.
I think A Few Good Men. I mean, who doesn't like that scene, right?
You can't get, yeah.
You gotta watch that scene.
But both are great. I love both of those. So good choices. All right. Well, Holly, Chris, thank you again so much for taking the time to be with us. We really appreciate it, and wish you and the firm all the best.
Thanks, Daniel.
Appreciate it.
All right, my thanks again to Holly Davis and Chris Kirker for joining us on the show. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing two things? Would you subscribe so you don't miss an episode? And then would you rate and review the podcast in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts? If you have suggestions or thoughts about the show, or if I could help you in any way, please email me, daniel@varsitysearch.com. Also, don't forget, if you or someone you know might have interest in any of the opportunities that we mentioned at the top of the show that we are currently searching for, you can get in touch with me or go to varsitysearch.com/lawyers. Also, don't forget, in your feed right now is our newest and latest movie verdicts episode where we dive into Hamilton. So we hope you'll take advantage of that. Part 1 is in your feed right now. Part 2 to come very soon. All right, that's it for today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks again so much to each of you for listening. I'm Daniel Hare with Varsity Search, and we'll talk with you next time.